Nikita Khrushchev, the General Secretary of the CPSU, holds a speech that, among other things, outlines the party plans for 1960. Since 1953, Khrushchev's economic and liberal reforms have had little positive impact on the nation. This speech is his last chance to gain favor with the people in the party. One of the announcements made is the construction of a new city in the southern Ural Mountains, just west of Chelyabinsk. Oversight of this project was appointed to Anastas Mikoyan, one of the few old Bolsheviks still in the party. Anastas, of course, had known of this in advance and had made orders to construct and develop the city by the time he returned from his trip to Cuba in February. Hello, and once again, I am here to bring you a new series. Yes, another one. I'm not making promises about this one. I'm just gonna do what I want, and I'll let you all join in on the creation process as much as I kind of can. Obviously, none of you are playing the game and making the videos, but I like to include you in as much things as possible, like naming and voting for cities, ideas like that. But I'll also be, as the intro has alluded to, I'll be making this story follow the events of world history. Well, not quite. We're actually going to get to vote on a few things. I say we. I'm going to be dictating the story, obviously. I'll be telling the story through the game and through cutscenes, I guess, like the one that started this video off. And you'll get a choice and ability to vote on things. For this first video, though, there won't be much to vote on. Once we start getting further into all the episodes and the series, that'll be fun. I'll also be showcasing the game, of course, but for this first episode, there's nothing major to vote on. But there are two things that you can suggest and vote on. Firstly is the name of the city we're building here, first one, which will come off of this interchange that I'm building here on screen. And then there's the border town, where the construction site was at. That one as well, so if you've got any good ideas for names, I do ask that you keep it, civil. And also, if you can make it somewhat Russian, if not, I'm gonna Sovietize the name you give me. I don't think Sovietize is the right word, but I'm going with it. It's probably not even a word. Anyways, this series, will have major events come along, but the future is not written. So this is an alternate universe. So the USSR, for instance, may not dissolve in 1991. It may dissolve earlier. It may dissolve later. It may never dissolve. I'm not going to do exactly what I would wish would happen in the world. I'm going to present issues, events to you as the audience, and you'll get to vote on them in between episodes. I might run this through Discord, or I may run this through the YouTube channel comments itself. Whichever sounds easiest or best for you guys, just let me know. Otherwise, I'll just be talking about the game mostly for this episode, and also why I'm playing it and all of what's going on the screen. So, to explain what's going on the screen, currently building the highway interchange that will be the backbone of a lot of transportation coming up in our republic, in our state. Call it a state for now. The principles of socialism do not call for a lot of vehicle transportation. The main reason is because socialism is all about equality, and the people would usually use public transportation, a very free, very good, very reliable public transportation. That's the ideal for socialism. However, the Soviet Union did not have quite this perspective. They had a very interesting perspective, and it's one of the many failures of the Soviet Union that I would point to. But in case of city planning, the Soviet Union did not plan for public transportation out of an ideological position. It was actually out of a necessity, because the productive forces in the Soviet Union were just too weak to provide so many cars for each person in the Soviet Union. Instead, they had to build their cities in a very walkable, very good, in a very sensible manner. There is some argument to be had there, of course, because even after this was an issue in the 30s and the 40s, and even after the 70s, after Khrushchev and his liberal reforms, they still pursued public transportation quite heavily, despite the fact that their productive forces had increased to the point where they could export vehicles more readily than they actually had a local market. Now that we're about 6 minutes into the video, I can safely assume that you're enjoying this. If you aren't, however, instead of liking the video, dislike it. If you, however, want to see more of this as well, on top of all of that, go ahead and subscribe. If you dislike it and want to see more of it, then I guess, I don't know, go outside. Like, live a life that's worth living, instead of worrying about someone on YouTube. One thing I do want to encourage viewers to do is to comment a lot, but not for just aimless reasons. One thing I do want to have people be able to see is their influence on the series. And while I said earlier that there may not be much to talk about and really only names, I did actually think of something in between recordings. And that is Anastas Mikoyan's trip to Cuba. Because by the time we're ending this episode, it'll be March. So Mikoyan will be back, and will have to present his findings to the CPSU's Central Committee. So for some background and historical knowledge, right? We obviously know here in the present time that Fidel Castro is in fact a communist. Shocker, right? That, wow, mind blown. Che Guevara is obviously also a communist. Now, the two are not the same. They have a lot of varying views. But what's more important is Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro is the leader of Cuba. Mikoyan's trip to Cuba had a lot going on it. So recently, Cuba had a revolution. This revolution was in part funded by the Soviet Union against the fascist dictator Batista. However, also, funding was sourced for this rebellion by the CIA. However, and important to note, we know this. We know that this only happened during the last year of the rebellion. The rebellion happened for about 8 or 9 years. I forget how long exactly it was, but it was almost a decade long. And only in the very last year did the CIA actually care about this rebellion. They only did this to gain favor. But this muddied the water. Current time, 1960, right? The CPSU of the USSR was informed by communists in Cuba that Fidel Castro was a part of the bourgeoisie before committing to the rebellion. This is actually true. It's backed up by his family position, his ownership, assets, etc. Also, because of the funding by the CIA, the communists in Cuba and the KGB believed very, very fairly that Castro is actually a CIA agent, or is at least working for the CIA, and is another plant in Cuba. The theory at the time was that the USA was distancing itself from Batista due to human rights violations and the dictatorship, ruining the economy, and potentially all other factors of life in Cuba. This isn't actually true, but it makes a lot of sense historically, and it's the position that the current CPSU and the KGB hold, believing that Castro may be a CIA asset, and that Cuba is going to be very Western aligned. However, during Mikoyan's trip, Mikoyan found a bit of common ground with Castro, believing that he's more of a man of the people, and that Cuba may be a more liberal democracy going forward. Castro's understanding from Mikoyan's understanding of Castro has been made fairly obvious that they want good relations with the USSR and the USA. Now, the kind of deal that Mikoyan and Castro made was a mutually beneficial trade where raw goods from Cuba would go to the USSR, and the USSR would send industrial refined goods like fuel, fertilizer, machines, tractors, etc. They also gave a $100 million or ruble. I'm not 100% sure what it was. I'm gonna go with a ruble, 100 million ruble loan, which would make trading with the USSR extremely beneficial. It would make sense for them to do that more often with the loan, which would be paid later by Cuba. This is the actual historical deal, and if this is the route that you guys want to take, we'll go with that. However, history is not determined, so I will say, even if you do pick this option, right, it may have different outcomes for Cuba and the USSR. Now, so we'll call that deal a mutual trade and loan. There are 3 other options, however. So consider this: there is alternatively, Mikoyan and Castro could have come to a deal that actually takes more raw resources out of Cuba in an unfair exchange, and there would still be a loan, however the terms of which would be far more exploitative, more in line with US loans and IMF loans, essentially rigging the economy based off of this loan to extract more labor and more resources out of Cuba. Now, this might seem evil and very nefarious, and this is also something the USSR has not really done before, but with Khrushchev being in power now, and with Mikoyan going into a new regime currently running Cuba, this might be precedent to, especially with the CIA being involved and the US possibly being involved, this may be a chance for the USSR to extract labor and resources out of the US empire. Alternatively, we could have an open trade deal, where instead of there being any set terms, there is just a loan that is sent from the USSR, the same loan as original, 100 million ruble, but there is no terms defined by what Cuba and what the USSR will trade. It will open the door, but it is a sort of hands-off approach to Cuba. And finally, Mikoyan and Castro just do not come to any agreement at all, and there's just no trade with Cuba. They don't have any trade with Cuba for now. We might come back to it. Maybe we just close Cuba off and we just don't want to trade with Cuba. That's up to everyone here watching. You'll see the 4 options on the screen. I'll probably come up with a term for each of them. If you also have a different idea of how Mikoyan's trip could have gone, that's also something you could pose as well. What I'll do is I'll try and add up all the likes and comments and whatnot from each sort of option, or I'll take the top voted comment. What I'll do is I'll take the top voted comment for each possibility or each outcome, right? And that's what we'll go with. Now, each of them do not have a set resolution either, so I can't even tell you what will happen if each of them, if you choose any of them. Some of these may be the same across each of them. Anyways, I'll leave that with you guys. Comment what you want. Vote. Upvote or like thumbs up or whatever it's called on YouTube. Like it. That's it. Like other people's comments if you liked that idea more than any of the ones I produced, or you like that choice in particular. So a lot of stuff's going on here on screen. I'll probably start talking about that. How about that? We'll talk about that. Alright, so, the city. Planning out the city. We need a lot of things like recreation, leisure. First things first, is an indoor swimming pool. Even though this place could accommodate an outdoor swimming pool, an indoor one is much more comfortable, can be used all year round. We're also going to have a hospital here in the center of the city because it's much more efficient for people to get around. It's much more easier for people to go to hospital There will be obviously ambulances there, hence why we connected it up. Got a university as well here, and I also placed a bin collection area as well. Make sure all the servers are going to apply to the whole area. And there's the headquarters of the Communist Party of the state. So Anastasia Mikoyan will be going there later once it's actually built. Another bin. The first apartment building in this block and in this city is right there. We're gonna build a another block as well, sort of an auxiliary block, which will have other services. But before we get to that, we'll just place a couple of things, fill in this little gap here. And probably also, sorry, not probably, we will put in some other things, some other sports recreation facilities, a volleyball court there, and a basketball court as well. There'll also be a little fountain there because fountains are nice. Some trees as well, pine trees that is. I'm going to stick to pine trees for this city, hence why I got rid of those ones there. Because usually I do, I think it's beech trees, but pine trees, I want to do something new. We'll go with pine trees for this whole city. We can mix it up later with other trees. Until then, yeah. Anyways, this auxiliary block. This is where the train station for the city will be. This will probably get a lot of service. More and more service the further we build out. For now, it's probably going to be for tourists only. And it'll be very infrequently used. It's mostly being built for the future. I'm planning it out for the future. I'm going to build it now and not have to worry about it later. Also for the city, a school. Very important to have it centrally located. Also a kindergarten as well. Kindergartens are smaller and you can sort of dot them around, but I'm going to put one here because it fits really well with the school here. And also some recreation facilities for those schools. Not that I need them there, but because I like putting them there, it makes a lot of sense to me. So, first things first is a football field. I like my football. There's some really cool mods, actually. Oh, and a basketball court and a volleyball court, I think. Or did it not fit? No, yeah, it didn't fit. But, anyways, mods. So, one of the coolest mods that's on the workshop is a football stadium. And I would love to have a football stadium, especially to host football matches between our state here and the cities within the state, and across all of the Soviet Union as well, and even the Eastern Bloc. We probably will never get to host any big games, like any potential World Cups, but who knows, maybe we will. Yeah. Regardless, it's fun to have a football stadium or two. This here, though, this is a very important thing to get right. It's the connection from the outside world to our little state via rail. Yeah, oh gosh, this was so annoying. Trying to get 3 rails to go into 2. Sometimes it's really easy, sometimes it's like this. It's just difficult for no reason, I don't know why. No, oh, there it is, yeah. It's a bit wonky, but honestly, after spending like what felt like forever on it, just left it. Yeah. Earlier, when I was planning out this rail network, I was going to build it elevated. I have gone against that idea, I don't want to do that. We're going to build it on the ground. The highway as well, you'll see it slowly being built over time, but you'll see later a cinematic of it being built quickly, in a, I guess you could say, time lapse. Yeah, that's the appropriate name for it. But yeah, a lot of just sort of managing the street access here. That node. Oh, yeah, I fixed it. I was gonna say, don't know why that node didn't fix itself, but yeah. There's a lot of little intricacies about playing this game and whatnot. I could go into depth about that stuff, but I assume most people watching aren't playing the game. But if that is something that interests you and you'd like a tutorial, I can point you in the direction of a couple of videos. If not, then whatever. If those videos are not satisfying or aren't as up to date as I'd like, maybe I'll make my own. They're pretty popular as well, so who knows, maybe I should make one. Anyways, this here, rail construction office. I'm currently just building it so it'll be attached to the rest of the city. I want it close enough to the city so that people can use it. I'll also want to build a storage for it as well. because its current storage that it has now inside of it is good enough for 1 track layer, but you can store up to 4 of them in there, and you can have really big track layers, like massive trains with cranes on them. We'll just go eat through that storage really fast, so it's good to have a separate storage connected to it. Yeah, as you can see here, the highway is quite. It's been developing off camera very well, and right here I'm going to be building a very simple water setup, just so that we have drinkable, clean water in our state. That way people can drink water and not, die of thirst. I hear that's really important for human beings, that they need to drink water. Personally, I don't have that skill issue, but, apparently these guys do. That pipe I just placed in between the water well and the treatment facility is not going to work. I know that I'll need a pump earlier, which is the one I'm placing here, that comes out of the treatment facility, but water going out of that, water coming out of the well and into the treatment facility, because the height, the way the game works is the well can pump water up to the surface, but that's it, right? That's all it will do. You can't actually pump it out. It could go downhill, right? In this game, sewage and water, actually in real life even, water goes downhill. Gravity affects water. Crazy, right? Same as sewage, which is why I've placed the sewage facility. There's a sewage treatment facility that's above the sewage outlet, I think. I hope that's right. If not, I'll have to redesign that with a pump in the middle, which won't be too hard. Otherwise, the sewage is the hard one. Water is actually easier. Surprisingly a lot easier. Sewage is difficult because the pumps are very different. They look very different because they operate differently. The pumps will pump, they'll only pump sewage up. They'll only pump it upwards. They will not pump it in a direction like the water pumps will. The water pumps will pump it along the pipe, right? Whilst the sewage pumps will only push it up to the surface of wherever the hell the pump is, which is not very good. It's probably because sewage is a very dense, viscous liquid, while water is famously very runny. It tends to make rivers and flows well, nice and cleanly. So you can just pump it pretty simple and straight. But sewage is very much different, hence why I made that little hill there to put the pump on, so that the sewage coming out of the town will be better. One thing that almost every building needs is sewage and clean drinking water, even factories, because you have toilets and you have, drinking fountains in the factories, taps and whatnot, for workers to drink so that they aren't dying of dehydration whilst at work, especially in places like steel foundries and whatnot. These roads will be paved over. There's a bus stop there for people who will work in that sewage facility. I'm never going to upgrade this to a train station, in my mind at least, because the sewage facility only needs like 10 or 20 people to work there. A bus can take like up to however many is... Oh, sorry, it would be like... It depends on the bus, but you can easily fit 10 people in a bus, right? Like, a typical bus can fit... The ones I'm using at least can fit 40 people, I believe. Yeah, totally easy, right? That's just a bus that will go back and forth between this town and there. Yeah, that's just trying to figure out where I should put this substation. Substations have a range of, I think, 250 or 350 meters. It's where you go from, like, high voltage, medium voltage to, like, low voltage. The low voltage being the stuff you actually use in the house. But also, industries use low voltage too. That's one of the most unrealistic parts of the game, is that factories don't use power cables like that. Big ones. They actually use the little ones. The ones that you can't see or make yourself, which is fine, I guess. It makes the game easier and much more straightforward to play with. but at the same time, the power draw that they have doesn't match quite what's being marked here. And yeah, the the infrastructure does become a bit of a spaghetti. I should probably clean that up a bit, as it is a little messy under there. Oh, and gravity, right. So I intentionally built a water tower in the city. Oh, there's the fix there for the water pumps and everything. And I did check it, it does work. And also there are people who need to work in that facility to treat the water. I'll also need to get chemicals set up for that. That's not been set up yet. I don't really care too much about that all being done yet. Actually, now that I look at it, the piping's not too much of a crazy mishmash, but the sewage for the water treatment plant. Nothing crazy there. There's just a switch there. Here's a little time lapse as well for the sewage plant being built. You already saw that the water treatment and all that was done. I'll have to import chemicals for the for both of these facilities actually. That will be very easy to do though, so I'm probably not gonna go over it too much. It's as simple as just importing stuff from the border and just popping it into the facility. I could do that with like one truck at the border. Yeah. We're not going to need something like fancy until I get technical services or distribution offices set up in the city, but that's like maybe even a year down the line. Yeah, there it is. Look at that. Nice. Very nice. Here's some of the roads. Oh, actually. No. The video's not over yet. Goodness gracious. No, yeah. So here's some of the roads being paved here. It's awesome. There's an inbuilt time-lapse feature in the game. It's really bad. But there is a cool function where you can speed the game up to a time-lapse-like speed. Especially good for when you're doing stuff like this, waiting for the game to just build stuff. Because you can plan out so much, but things have to get built, and they take time to build. You can't, you have to wait for it. Which is a part of the game I love. It actually makes the game more enjoyable, because you can't just plan everything out and then have it all be built instantly. Things have to be built in a natural progression. You can also start the game with pre-built stuff on the map, but it usually generates really funky and I can't be bothered with that. Yeah. Yeah, this here though, this bridge, this junction, on-ramp, off-ramp, is very important to the first episode. I think this is the landmark build for the first episode. You see buses coming in, providing workers and building up the bridge itself. This will also help us. I do plan, as you can see, there's some like patches of dirt on the other side of the city. On the other side of the highway. I do plan on building stuff there. I'm not 100% certain what I will be building there, but I know sort of the general character of it. That's why the junction has been built the way it has been. It's symmetrical in every single way. I think it's almost symmetrical down to the meter, so that's fun. But yeah, it just looks so cool. Looks so awesome, and because it's also, you can see the construction happening as well, and it happens in a realistic pace and way. There's stages to construction, like the foundations have to be built, like what you saw earlier. You saw the excavator earlier just digging up the foundations on the other side. And now you're seeing the concrete being laid out and formed. And once it's finally formed, they'll bring asphalt over. And the paver, there we are, yeah. And then they'll pave the actual road that the bridge is building. And now you're seeing, again, the same things are happening on the other side. They're building up the columns. And then they'll build up the rest of the facility. Sorry, not the facility, the ramp. And now, because the asphalt, needs to be paved out and flattened, there's a roller there, rolling it out, and there it is. It's done. Well, that side at least. Still got to build the other side. Yeah. Well, the video is coming close to a close. There's still a few minutes worth of time lapse, and I'm probably going to shut up. It's probably, it's been about 30 minutes now of you listening to my voice almost constantly. I'm going to leave you with the rest of the time lapses. We do finish the bridge. I'm not going to, tease you with that. It will be done. You'll also see me do some one-way markings as well to make it all nice and doesn't look fancy, but it's orderly. I will see you next time, hopefully. Hopefully nothing bad happens or I don't just drop this series, but I will hopefully see you next time. And before next time, hopefully you can comment on what you'd like to see, resolutions for Mikoyan's trip to Cuba, and any name suggestions you have for the city, border town, anything else you can think of. If you have any ideas on where I could take the series as well, I'm open ears for that as well. But yeah, I'm going to shut up and let you watch the rest of the time lapse.